So today we are setting off into Germany, which is about a 4.5-hour drive away to reach our first destination, which is Colditz Castle. And after that we are supposedly going to the Buchenwald concentration camp, although Joe has already had people warning him off that experience, as it's such a sad place to go. So I'm not quite sure whether we'll end up there or not, but we'll see. So this morning we're going to go and have a traditional breakfast with Joe and his family, and then we'll be setting off about 8 o'clock up into the mountains towards Germany. So hope you'll stay with us.
And it's on the border.
Colditz,
Cheap labour, or some advantages, some
yeah.
encourage.
So we're in Poland for about a minute.
Yeah.
Willkommen. Got to start talking in German now to get some practice.
Look at that. I'm going straight or turning right?
I think you need to turn right.
Turn right.
Yep.
Look.
She doesn't think you're coming back then, does she?
Milk, sugar.
Oh my goodness. Picnic. We don't want to go to Colditz, we'll stay here for the day. I can't believe how flat that is.
I wonder whether there's any castle at all when it's so flat.
Yeah. Now of course, this will take us to the town to then find the castle. It should be on the hill. Castle to the right.
Through here?
Yeah. That's what it said. We can't. Gas. No, I'm just looking at the sat nav.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is definitely the old town, isn't it? Look how little and small these roads are. And it's a
Turn right.
turn right. Good grief.
That's it, isn't it? We were looking at it.
I was going to say, that looks very similar to it.
It must be it.
Yeah, I recognise the walkway.
Yeah, that must be it.
Parking. Can you park? The car park is closed. Where do we park?
There's a car park there. A few visitors here, I think.
More than you thought.
More than we thought, yeah.
I think we should have a picture in front.
Like that?
Like that, yep. We'll get you'd be surprised actually that the whole castle would be in that photo.
I have never done any selfie.
I know, well there you are. This is your first selfie.
Yeah, just like Japs or the Chinese.
Ah.
They do it everywhere.
Well, they probably speak German. In front of Colditz Castle at last. There. I noticed when I first looked at it on the internet, I thought that looks nothing like, but it's because they've painted it all white, haven't they?
Yeah. It's been renovated. everything.
Yeah.
Roof, plastering.
Yeah. Well, this must be the museum down here.
Excuse me, was there any Czech?
Yes, yes, certainly was. The most famous was certainly coming back British by the Germans. All right. But so were some of the Poles as well, however. Yeah. Well, what do you call it? The Zakopane Mountains there.
That's just all.
Doesn't actually stop there, look, Joe. It carries on.
Carries on, yeah.
Right, please go in front of the screen and sit down. Thank you.
The thin air by starving prisoners speaks volumes about the Colditz spirit.
Tell you, I reckon it's fantastic.
It does.
Just need to get going as soon as we can. Yeah.
Answer to the question, would it have flown?
Oh, yeah. Then can we?
Well, I think it would have certainly descended to Earth.
We're ready to go down here. I've got video left.
Hugh's glider had better do more than just descend to Earth, for the sake of Colditz Town.
We're all ready to go. Everyone happy? Everybody happy? Anybody? I'm happy on this.
Right on cue, the wind starts gusting.
30 seconds. Ready? Go back.
Okay, occasionally you see the outfit, but it is rather on the rare. Although those were the three original pilots, Tony Rolfe, Bill Goldfinch and Jack Best. But as it said, there were at least another 11 or 12 guys that helped also in its construction. It's quite remarkable how they managed to do it under the noses of the Germans. But nonetheless, it was built purely as an emergency situation. Potentially, Colditz was always believed that it could have been used in a hostage situation. Right. On. Sorry.
So this is the actual way through.
No, I'm going to tell you. Right. Well, no. Okay. And obviously, that photograph was taken by Lee Carson on behalf of the American Army. Ironically, she only died last year. She was 101. Okay.
Can you be building a plane flying off the roof?
I can't believe that they managed to build all that,
Can't believe it.
mix the porridge for the wings and all this and under the noses of them, and they didn't know it was happening. I mean, it's crazy, isn't it? I said they must be very, very poor guys.
And French officers were still left in Colditz. And it was predominantly British Air Force pilots.
This refers to your comment about the orderlies. For the simple reason, although it was propaganda as well, may I add, because they tried to give the impression life in Colditz was better than for Germans outside. That is the reason they're so immaculately dressed. But the other reason is, under the Geneva Convention, they couldn't be made to do any type of formal work whatsoever.
Continuously.
Really?
It only got closed when prisoners did something untoward, something that wasn't allowed. Then both the chapel and the theatre would be closed for periods of up to 6 weeks.
as a punishment.
20 tons.
Well, I know what to
Dug
take me
here on the
to
rock.
dug through 30 metres of rock.
No.
Nowadays we'd need all sorts of machines.
Sit down for a moment, please. Thank you. But it's actually dated 1802. It is in remarkably good condition. I don't know if they wanted to make me feel at home, but they actually painted 3 white Yorkshire roses on the ceiling. But that wall behind you is over 14 foot thick, and behind that wall there's a cellar beneath. In the cellar behind that wall, they actually were looking for the crypt, but there was no crypt. Well, ironically, that's part of the story. Yeah, I'm surprised.
So during the war,
Digging bear.
work here, you said
Yes.
it's been restored.
It was something about 2 prisoners who hid themselves for a year under the pulpit or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was ironically.
Chins.
Came down here and landed. Hopefully they thought it was in the crypt, but they actually landed. I probably wouldn't have done any of that digging because they landed in the German wine cellar. I think I might have given it a miss. No?
That's incredible size of it there. I mean,
Initially, when they managed to get underneath the floor of the chapel, they brought electric in actually. They pinched electric from the vestry, so they did then light it up with electric lighting.
so this
That one there, because that allows you to go up to the museum, but also allows you to go back through into the second courtyard where we were and go into the open door. Obviously there's a wonderful painting gallery in there, but also there's some history from certainly from 1939 to 45, and also there's a little bit of history from the Middle Ages time. 12 kilometres away. They actually liberated Colditz back on the 16th of April 1945. The Russians were still in Torgau, about 45 kilometres away in a northerly direction. But as I mentioned, the American Army, 1st Army, the 9th Division, brought a female journalist who took that wonderful photograph. And actually, that is where the roof is, the apex there, and that's where they built the runway. This is where the bath came down, where the glider came off, dropped a little bit, and started flying over the valley of the River Mulder, as originally intended 67 years earlier. It was watched by millions on Channel 4 television, millions on YouTube, and thousands of people came to Colditz. But actually, it landed just to the right of that yellow bungalow where the small tree is. It landed.
The boys of 16 wrote to Erie Town. The Jones. The glider was assembled below the attic, and a radio receiver was brought down to its hide and worked in the.
Was it enjoyable for you? Good.
you don't.
And they say they've just come from Prague. As I said, they were fairly hopeless cards, weren't they? They're on a guided tour or something.
One spoonful of sugar.
Please.
What about milk?
No, I'm fine, thanks. That last spiral staircase, I was starting to feel it on my knee.
Ah, it was a lot to climb, up and down.
Have we got enough for tomorrow as well? So this is rabbit sandwich.
Yes. Looks like it,
I didn't want to upset Renata last night, but it still tasted like chicken to me. Which is a good thing, I suppose. But I thought it just got a slight spicy taste, and I couldn't figure out if that was the meat itself or the fact that, as you say, she's got paprika and pepper. Very nice. Hi. So, this is the end of day 2. I'm currently sat in a quality hotel in Tier Park, which is in a town called Gotha, halfway between Erfurt and Eisenach. Means nothing to you, I know. It's en route to Eisenach from the destination of today, which was Colditz Castle. Colditz Castle was absolutely fantastic in ways I couldn't imagine. I sort of went to Colditz Castle not really knowing what to expect. The only recollection I have of Colditz was the film with John Mills from, I think it was 1954, and then the BBC series back in the 70s with David McCallum in, and of course Escape from Colditz, the Waddington game, which I think everybody had at the time, and it was a huge favourite. But really, apart from that, didn't know much about it at all. And the first thing that struck me when we got to Colditz was, it's not very big. Well, that's not true. The castle is huge. It's a massive stone structure, but the courtyard inside is very small where they exercised, and I thought that they had barracks in fields all over the place, and it's smack in the middle of town and there's nowhere to go. And so yeah, from a point of view of the actual prisoners, it was very, very small and they were very compact. Of course, everybody knows that Colditz was famous for the glider that the British airmen built on the roof, and it was quite fascinating to actually see that, because they do have a mock-up of the glider in the loft, which we went up to 89 steps on a spiral staircase. It was quite a long way, especially with me and my bad knee, and yeah, it was good. The glider, I didn't realise, never actually flew, because the Americans actually liberated Colditz Castle just before they were ready to set it off. But apparently it was never intended as an escape route. It was there for an emergency if something really went really badly wrong in the castle, and they needed to get rid of some of the VIP prisoners and get them out in a hurry. Many years later, apparently, Channel 4 did a programme where they did actually build a reconstruction of the glider, and they did launch it, and it did fly across the river and land on the grass on the other side, so it would have worked apparently. Having said that, the glider crashed and broke into a million pieces, so perhaps they wouldn't have survived it, but hey, who knows. What was really sad is there was a spell before all the English and French etc. arrived, where hundreds of Polish prisoners were shipped into the castle from when the Russians invaded, which I didn't realise the Russians were involved in that part of the war, and actually the Russians and the Germans had a Soviet friendship agreement right at the start of the war, which eventually the Germans broke and invaded into Russia, at which point they released some 300,000 Polish prisoners that they'd got in concentration camps. What was also awful is the number of innocent Polish people that were put to death basically in mass massacres in those first few years, and that's something again that we didn't really understand or appreciate. And we all heard about the 1.1 million Jews that were put to death in the gas chambers in Auschwitz, but equally there were a lot of other people involved in some atrocities right at the time, and apparently in the late 90s the Russians have actually admitted to one of the major massacres that occurred right at the start of the war with the Polish. So it was interesting. There were things that we didn't expect to see. There was things that we had expected to see and wasn't there, such as I say, the place wasn't as big as we expected. There was less in the way of sort of interactive displays or setups of prisoners in their rooms, which I might have thought. There was a lot of cardboard cutouts, which I thought was a little bit old-fashioned these days. But then again, there was interesting things like there was a radio room. Apparently they shipped in 74 pieces of a radio in Red Cross relief packages over a period of months, that they actually built a radio and hid it in the loft, and it was so well hidden that the radio room that they put the radio in wasn't found until 1993. Can you believe it? Yeah, the guards were appalling. I would have sacked a lot of them. There were so many escapes, and ridiculously easy escapes. I don't know what the guards were doing. They must have been all asleep. And Colditz was classed as the top security prisoner of war camp for the really important prisoners, or those sort of serial offenders always trying to escape. So why then only put in charge of the place the youth movement or the Home Guard? They didn't put in any proper soldiers. It wasn't surprising half of them was escaping all the time. They were jumping over walls, hiding down cellars. The most amazing thing was the French tunnel, as they call it, where the French tried to tunnel out of the castle, and they went through 30 metres of solid rock, and they were only discovered by accident just 6 days before they were all due to escape, which was a little bit sad, I suppose, for them. So anyway, that was Colditz. Beautiful day. It was predicted rain here, and I'd suggested to Joe, my Czech friend, that what we needed to do was set ourselves up for rain, take all the raincoats and coats, and it would be absolutely fine, and that's exactly how it was. Stopped on the way in just outside Dresden for a light picnic, which you'll have seen on some of my photos that Joe's wife Renata kindly set up for us. We finished that off on the way out of Colditz at a little camping spot we found, and now we're in the hotel, which we only booked like 20 minutes before we actually arrived, so that was a bit lucky. Tomorrow we are setting off for, in this order, an old monument to the East-West German border that still exists just down the road from Eisenach, that Joe wants to see in a place called Krusenberg, and apparently that's one of the last remaining vestiges of the East-West divide. Straight on from that we're going to the Bach Museum in Eisenach, and we'll probably be there 2 or 3 hours, listen to a little bit of old classical music played on some of the original harpsichords apparently, and then we are heading back east towards the Buchenwald concentration camp, which Joe says he has passed many a times. Huge marble monument we can see in the distance, and we feel that we should just call in and have a quick glance at that. So that's the plan for tomorrow, and then hopefully we will end up in the direction of Prague, somewhere, stay the night down probably over the Czech Republic border, ready for tomorrow's trip back to the airport in Prague. So I'm going to go and get some sleep. It's been a long day, and hopefully we will see you tomorrow and see what tomorrow brings. I'm told that it might be a rainy day, so we'll have to see. At least the Bach Museum will be inside. Okay, see you later. Bye.